We are here with Mack Lindon, writer, director, and actor of Rise of the Underdog, the prequel to his debut film, Rise. Rise of the Underdog will be in cinemas on November the 6th. Hi, Mack.
Rebecca, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All good.
So obviously this story is all about your journey with Rise. Could you talk a little bit more about what that's like to see your life on screen?
When I took my children to the premiere, they really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until they enjoyed it, they said, "Oh, Dad, that's a really cool movie." You know, in my view, it's just a simple story. And I've removed myself quite far from the fact that it's me. And so, yeah, I don't have much time for A-cast, A-list actors and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's just another job. They're pretending to be someone, which is a craft. I get that. But plumbers and electricians and doctors and nurses and teachers, they're not pretending to be someone and getting paid ridiculous amounts of money. They're in the trenches, throwing their pound of flesh into the community. And why aren't A-list actors getting that as well? So I performed that from that point of view. And I think that was just that raw place. So yeah, I don't know. It's another job. And I did it, and it is what it is.
Amazing. The main theme of this film is, you say it in the title, Rise of the Underdog. It's the underdog theme. Could you let us know what you think are the personality traits of what an underdog would be?
I think the underdog spirit is being authentic to yourself, and we live in a world that's very hard to do that. But I think being true to yourself and not caring about the machine or the empire. You know, we've got a huge amount of underdog historical figures, you know, defied empires. And I mean, Gladiator is a great film where you see that, you know, Ridley Scott and Maximus, and he defied that empire. And really, I mean, he was stripped of his kudos and then he was the underdog. And it wasn't about his own personal glory. It wasn't about winning. At the end of the day, it was, you know, turned to the audience and said, you know, "Are you not entertained? Like I've got to this point, and then what?" And I think that's what I want to draw out of audiences and be set apart than the norm, than the orthodox model, than the movies that are just getting spat out, you know. And then what? You know. So yeah.
So you've already mentioned a couple of films there. What other films that have impacted you as a person and also as a filmmaker?
Yeah, cool. Frank Capra is the first one that I you know, comes to heart. You know, It's a Wonderful Life, a beautiful story about, you know, what would that community be like if that character had have committed suicide, you know, and it's a beautiful look at so many lives that person touched. You know, Gladiator I mentioned. Then there's, you know, the old favourites, the Australian story, The Castle. You know, he was taking on the big guys. You know, I think films of that ilk that really inspire people and encourage them. We live in a very busy world. When you want that hour and a half out, you want to be fed. You know, you just don't want to, you know, people time poor, you know, so you want to make sure when you're getting entertained that it's going to fulfill and uplift you.
Absolutely. So when was the moment that you decided you wanted to make this movie?
I think even on set when I was doing Rise, you know, there was conversations because of the, you know, insurmountable obstacles that we achieved, you know, to get the entire prison for 3 weeks. You know, the Attorney General said, get in and get out, you know, and all these sort of meetings that I'd had with people and, you know, it was just like, wow, we need to put this into either a doco or a film. And I think fast forward, and knowing the back end and how the business end is done and how much money I lost because of I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. I was like, actually, hold on. With all the knowledge I have now, let's tell that story. And it's not even about making a film. It's like, let's tell that story on how you can overcome, you know, obstacles.
Yeah, amazing. So what was the hardest scene that you had to film and why?
There was a couple of difficult ones down to cast and crew dynamics. I think there was I remember a scene where we were shooting the newborn and we had a little boy baby and it was a little girl that we were depicting, Pearl, my eldest daughter. That was a difficult scene in the medical center. I'm not sure, you know, why. It was just a really tough day. There were some really tough days. I don't know whether it was ego or dynamics or this or that or just spiritual opposition. That's been my experience, that every time I've been doing something that, involves light and love, for want of a better word, I've come up against opposition. And I think that's a thread in my films too, that, yeah, it's real. Everyone feels it. No one really speaks about it. I'm happy to speak about it.
And what would you say was the hardest creative decision that you had to make on set?
I mean, there's corners you can cut, there's corners you can't. You don't cut catering. you keep your cast and crew fed. Then the corners you can cut is having a team around you. Like Arthur is like my right-hand man. He's amazing with his gadgets. He's amazing with his resourcefulness. He can do what some of these big Hollywood films can do. And we've both been on these sets. So this is, again, not opinion. This is, we've experienced it, felt it, seen it. And we can do the same stuff that they do in a day. We can do it in half an hour. So, if you have the right passionate people around you, then the budgets don't have to be so big.
Absolutely. Now, I know you like to take on challenges, which is why this one I think is a really big challenge. Acting, directing, and writing the movie. I mean, how did you do all three? And specifically acting and directing, because having to switch between being an actor and a director on set, how did that transpire?
Yeah, it's tricky. There was two other friends and director friends and producer friends of mine, Addie and Bianca, and as I said, Art, he was a cinematographer. So between those three people that I trusted the vision to, they all put their pointers in when I was on this side of the camera, and then I would check or play back. Or sometimes you don't have the luxury of playback, so you just got to trust what they've gone. It's good. It's gold. We're good to go. It is difficult, but again, it's a simple story. Like I admire people like Mel Gibson, who did Braveheart, of that epic caliber. So, I aspire to be able to have the capacity to do what he's done, say with like Braveheart, and that, given the budget.
Yeah. And what would you say the main messages in this film that you really want to portray to audiences? What is the core?
I think the core message is, well, it's coupled with hope, but that's very loose and it's a fluffy word. So I think tenacity and perseverance is probably the more, the righter terms, but never give up. There's truth in that perseverance pays off, and eventually the ducks line up, or eventually you get the breakthroughs that you need. And often the breakthrough is happening in you. It's not really external. Often this whole process is about you growing and having an increased capacity to get to the other side. And then when you're on the other side of whatever that level was, you're better positioned to be more effective for you and for others. So the breakthroughs are happening in here, and then external, internal is kind of, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so circling back to the start again, around where we were talking around you having your life on screen. Now, you're not the only one there. We're having their lives portrayed on screens, your wife and your children. How did you feel, and how did they feel about seeing their lives on screen?
Yeah, it's a good question, Beck. I think we talked about it obviously first, and certainly pulled finances that were our personal to make this happen. I think I've held back on how tough it really was, for that very reason, to protect them a little bit, because it was a lot of pressure on the home front and a lot of faith in them to believe in the vision and the end goal. But she always backs me up, and we always achieve what we set out to achieve, and you can't do that alone. So, you've heard the whole thing. They say behind every good man is a woman, but I say beside every good man is a woman. I think it's a that sort of thing, not a that sort of thing. Yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mack.
Thanks, Rebecca. Look forward to seeing you in our next interview sometime.
Now, guys, remember, it is going to be out in cinemas on November the 6th. Go get your tickets.